Patrick DeHaan is the head of petroleum analysis at GasBuddy. He joins me now. And Patrick, I had in my head a lot of really brilliant questions to ask you. And then I read your most recent post on Substack, which had the best answers that I've seen to the questions that normal human beings are asking on a regular basis, and also address a lot of the things the president said yesterday during his cabinet meeting about oil, about energy independence. So I'm just going to kind of steal from your Q&A on Substack, if you don't mind, because I really do think it's invaluable for people to understand, starting with why do gas prices rise if the U.S. is, quote unquote, energy independent, but more importantly, the largest producer right now of barrels per day in the world?
Well, Phil, it just all comes back to the fact that it's a very global economy and countries are competing for each other to buy oil. And U.S. oil producers' goal isn't really to sell at the lowest possible price. Just like if somebody was approaching us with a home offer to buy our house, we're not going to take the lowest price. Oil companies take the higher price. And so when other countries like in Asia are being cut off by the de facto closure of the Strait of Hormuz, they're going to bid up the price for oil around the world, not just certain types and varieties. And so while we are the largest oil producer, still our prices of oil that we produce here at home are also affected by what's going on thousands of miles away.
The administration has said they will not pursue an export ban after meeting with oil executives who made very clear that that's problematic on the long term. But why is that viewed as problematic? What's wrong with just keeping our own oil?
Well, in the short term, it would generally push prices down, but essentially it would choke off the future growth of U.S. oil production. It would disincentivize U.S. oil companies to maintain production. In fact, it would be like cutting off half of their customers potentially. So U.S. oil companies are not really giddy at the fact of losing an export market. And not only that, but down the road, after they reduced investing, after they lose out on some of their customers, that would eventually lead to a drop in U.S. oil production that would then affect all of us. So, a lot of these complexities, a lot of these simple questions are actually very complex answers.
One of them, I think, is connected to another assertion the president made, but also a question I get a lot. The U.S. is not heavily reliant, or it's barely reliant, on the Strait of Hormuz for its oil for the most part at this point. Why does that matter to us? Like, why do we have to care about the Strait of Hormuz in the U.S.?
Yeah, again, kind of back to the first question, it's all about the fact that it's a global market. Countries that no longer have direct access to cheap Middle Eastern crude oil are now bidding up oil that we buy from other countries, including Canada. The West Coast also has a unique susceptibility to Middle Eastern crude oil prices. That's why areas like California right now are seeing gas prices approaching $6 a gallon because that oil is very relevant. And it is very much a global marketplace, and we are all tied together, though sometimes it seems like it would be easier to just cut off the flow of oil and not be relevant or not have to worry about the Strait of Hormuz. What is happening thousands of miles away impacts the entire global economy, and we are part of that.
The immediate downstream effect on prices at somebody's gas station when there are hostilities in the Middle East, when oil prices are jumping up, that oil isn't being delivered the next day. Why does that happen immediately? Why does that immediately flow down to as you're walking into your BP or as you're pulling up to your Shell?
Well, a lot of this has to do with the fact that markets don't wait to trade and understand information, just like the same reason, once you see a hurricane maybe headed for your home on the East Coast, you don't wait till it's there to act. You act when you learn that information. Just kind of how, like, I look at the weather forecast in the morning and I decide, well, I'll take an umbrella with me. You don't wait for it to start raining to pull your umbrella out. You bring it with you. And the markets are reactive in advance. Those futures prices also impact the spot price of fuel. It would be like telling somebody, I'm going to give you a piece of information, but don't act on it for a couple months.
Patrick DeHaan, I can't recommend enough. You probably should have had a question on the Jones Act, just so you could talk about why Jones Act makes no sense whatsoever. But otherwise, 10 out of 10, no notes. Really great work. Check out his Substack. Patrick DeHaan, thanks so much.
Thanks, Phil. Appreciate it.